Okay, welcome back. So the last thing we did in our previous video is configuring the model classes and then defining the DB connection class. To quickly recap, we said this connection class will be returning an object of type connection, and this will allow us to communicate with the database. Now, what we will be doing is we will be defining the data access objects. You know, every time we deal with databases, after defining the database, then we will be manipulating data in this database. And under data manipulation, we have four different operations. Those are mainly what we call them the CRUD operations, which stands for create, read, update, and delete. So basically, those are the four different statements: the insert, the update, the delete, and the select statement. What we did, we will be separating the model class from the data access object classes. So the data access object will be strictly for accessing the data. That's why we call them data access objects. And the same way we created a model class for each of the tables in our database, also for each of the classes which is representing a table, we will create a dedicated data access object class. So ideally, a database with two tables. In order to connect to this database, to communicate with this database in our NetBeans application, we need two model classes, one for each table, a DB connection class that will configure the connection to that database, and finally, under the DAO, we will be creating two data access object classes, one for each table or one for each class. Let me start by creating the first one, which is the department. So it's the department data access object class. So the DAO, department DAO. And then we will do the same for the doctor. Also, we call it doctor DAO. So basically, those are the basic classes that you need in order to communicate with the database. Two model classes and one DB connection and two DAO classes. Okay, so let's start with the first DAO class, the department DAO. What do we have here? Basically, we will have to define all the data access functions that represent the four CRUD operations. As you all know, select statement is a very rich statement, so we might end up defining more than one select query. We might need to get departments. Basically, we will have, for example, a function that will load all the departments. We would like also maybe to allow the user to maybe filter departments, like search for a certain department either by name or by building. So hence you will end up having more than one select function or more than one select query that you need to run. However, for the other basic operations, insert, update, and delete, we will stick to only one per statement. So one insert, one update, and one delete. Again, for delete, for example, you might delete by ID, by name, by building, same for update, but for simplicity, we will only define one for each. So again, like we did in the DB connection, we will need the same libraries. So for simplicity today, we will simply include the whole SQL library. And we will be also using some utility classes. Okay, so the first one here is get all departments. I would like to load all departments. So what do I need to do? I will define a function, public, and this function will return a list of type department. And now just as you can see, department is not known. Why? Because now we are in the DAO package and the department is in the model package. So we need to import the model, okay, for that class. So we will name this function get all departments. Okay, so what will this function return? First, this function will return a list of departments. I will call it deps or dep list equal new array list. Okay. Now, what we need to do, sorry, this department. What we need to do is we need to first, we need to get the connection. Then we need to write the query. So first, get the connection. Okay. Or let's call it open connection to the database. Then we will execute the query. So we will define and execute the query, and finally, when we are done, we will close the connection. So how are we going to do that? Let's start by the first one step at a time. So this is a function that might throw SQL exception. So like we did with DB, we will do the same here. We will print the error message. Okay. So the first step is to load the connection. If you remember, we defined our DB connection class, and this DB connection class will return has actually one function called get connection, and this will return an object of type connection. So this is exactly what we need now. We need first to call this method. So I will start by db connection dot get connection. So this is the first step. Then what I will do is I need to now create two things. Number one, I need to create a statement that I will use to write the SQL query. And then number two, I need to specify what, or I need to store the values returned by or returned from the execution of the query. So now, because we are getting all the departments, so it's not a surprise that the query we will be using is select star from departments. And as you know, this will return the whole department table. So how can I store this in my Java application? For that, we have an object called result set. This result set will contain or will allow us to store all the department records from the department table. So the first thing is to define the SQL, which is select star from department. Now I have the connection. I wrote my query. So what I will do is first I will create a statement. For that we have from the connection class. So the connection class, we have something called create statement. That's the first thing. Then this is the one I will use to execute the query. So for that, I will call statement dot execute. As you can see, we have different execute functions. The one we need now is execute query. And as you can see, this execute query returns a result set. So this result set will be used to, as you can see, this is ideal for the select statement, and the result set is an object that contains the data produced by the query. And in our case, it's actually the whole record or the whole data in the department table. So execute query for SQL, and for that the return type is result set. We'll call it RS. So this will be for the executing query. And now we have, so imagine now we have the whole department table in this result set. However, our function is expecting or will return a list of departments. So what we need now is to translate or to move records from this result set into our array list of departments. So how can we do that? It's actually simple. So what we need is we need to go through the records in this result set. So while rs.next, so it's like you're reading from that result set. And this is something similar to, reading input, where we might have different types of input from the user. And now from the result set, like this is saying I will go through each record in that result set, and again this is select star from department, so it will return all the departments, all the rows, all the records in the department table. And in each record we have, if you still remember, we have three different columns, one for the ID, one for the name, and one for the building. So what we will be doing, we will be going through each record, and we will be getting the values for the attributes of each record, and we will be creating an object of type department, because this is what we are expecting here. We will add it to the list, and then we will return the list once we are done. So here the RS or result set, it has different get methods depending on what value are you getting. So the first value I will get is the ID for the department equal rs dot get. So as you can see, get n string, get object, get string, get array, decimal, blob, binary, byte, etc. All the different data types. For us, it's very simple. We have the string for the three attributes, and as you can see here, the get string is expecting the column label, column in the database. So if you remember, we named that ID, that column. I will copy that for simplicity and paste it 3 times. One for the name, and this is the name of the department, and the last one for the building. So those are the three values for the record. Now what we can do, we can create a department. DEP equal a new department. So now we're back to our Java Word department. Here we need the ID, we need the name, and we need the building. So this is the department object. What we need to do now is simply add it to the list of departments. So dot add DEP. Once we are done, after all of this, so this will go through all the records, and when you are done, you need to return the department list. And this is what your function is expecting, a list of departments. Or we rushed into returning because we're inside the try. So basically we will return here. So if it's empty, it will return the empty list. If not, then it will return the full list of departments. And that's it for getting all departments. So as you can see, we started by, let's put now comments in the right place. So we created the connection, opened the connection actually, and then we, all of these, the statement and the query for executing the query. And now we are still missing the last one, which is closing the connection. So after we are done, what we will do is we'll close the connection. So con dot close. And also you have for the statement dot close. So this way you close both the statement and the connection. So we make it available for the next call. And that's it for get all departments. So again, the result set is the new thing here. This is a special data type that will allow us to store results returned from a select query. So basically a table, all records or some of the records in the table. And what we need to do next is we need to go through the records in that result set, transfer them or transform them into our department object. That's why we have the model class, because we are moving from the database into the Java model. So first we go through the records. As you can see, we have different get methods, and finally we will create an object of type department and we'll add it to the list. And this is what we will be returning here. All right, now the next function would be, so as I said, we might have one or more get statements. So get functions, sorry, and we might need to call more than one get department. So for example, you might get department by building, get department by name. So you can then go ahead and add other get functions depending on what you are trying to retrieve from the database. Let me quickly do one thing with you. Let's say I would like to get department by building. This would return an array, so it would be the same. Let me do get department by name. So I will copy all this function and will change only few things in it. So to show you how easy it is. So get not all departments. Now I want to get department by name. So ideally we will have unique names for departments. So it's not a list of departments, it's only one department. So I will change the return type here. So it will return a department, and then this whole thing is not needed anymore. I will only need one department, which is here. So then we will do the same, but here select star from department where, yeah, now I need to give the where clause. So based on what? Where name equals, for example, and then sorry, here we need one parameter, so that's a string name. So where name equal, ideally I want to give the name of the department here. As you know, when we communicate with when we write SQL queries, also we have some syntax rules. So whether it's a string or a numerical value, then each has its own way of passing to the database. So in order to avoid any mistakes in passing data or in missing some of the syntax rules, missing some of the maybe a quotation or it's a numeric value. To avoid all of that, we will be using something called a prepared statement instead of a statement. So what is a prepared statement? The prepared statement will allow us to simply avoid any syntax errors. It will help me passing data to the database, and this is the best way to pass parameters to the database. So instead of giving the name, I will replace that with a question mark. So where name equal question mark. Then the next thing that will change here is instead of creating a statement, we will be creating a prepared statement. So then this will be creating a prepared statement. So create, sorry, not create, it will be con dot prepared prepare statement. And here the only difference is you pass the query. And finally, you execute your query. And once you are done, then you do exactly the same. So it's not now multiple records that we are expecting. We expect only one record. So instead of while, we will add if. So that's if rs dot next. We will now, we don't need the name because basically we're querying for the name, so we don't need it. So we'll get the ID, we'll get the building. We don't need to declare or define the department again. So this will be our department. We don't need to add it to the list, and the rest will remain the same, but here instead of department, actually we will return null here, and then here we will return DEP. So in case we have a department, we will return a department, and if no department is found, then we will return null. And that's how you can get one department. So it's the same but with a query, but now instead of a statement, we declared a prepared statement, and this is the one that we use to get one department from the database table. All right, now the next thing we'll do is basically the same. We're done with select. We'll go to now maybe adding. So let's see how we can add a new department. So it will be exactly the same. So public. Now for adding, we don't expect a department back. So I will be only inserting a new department. For that, we will see that we have a different execute function, and this will not return a result set. It will return an integer. This integer value represents will be our let's say guide whether the execution of the insert statement was successful or no. So we will return an integer. This will be our add department, and for that we need all the attributes, so name and finally building. we will follow exactly the same steps. We will define the, let's start directly with try, and then catch SQL exception. So this is SQL exception, basically the same. SQL get message. Okay, so we start by defining the SQL query. So that's the SQL. What we want to do here, we want to define an insert into, yeah, department. So ID, name, building, and then values. So here we have the same issue. So the values, again, we have the same issue here. I need to make sure that I'm passing the values with the right format. So to avoid any errors in that one, we will use a prepared statement instead of a statement. You know what? Actually, I forgot one step in the previous one. We'll go back and fix it in a minute. So we added the question mark, prepared statement, but we forgot to pass a value for that. I'll do it now. So now that's 1, 2, and 3 values that we would like to pass. So this will be our SQL query, and we're done with this one. So let me quickly go back here. After we define the statement, then I need to pass the value for that statement. So statement dot set value. Yeah, so the same way we got a string, we will set a string, and now they are ordered, so like the index. So the first question mark is the first parameter, so we need to give the parameter index. The first one is 0, and what is the value for that one? This is for the name that we are getting here. So this will close the loop. So we need to do the same here. So after that, we'll create the prepared statement. Equal con dot prepare. Again, I forgot the connection. Let me copy that from here. So that's the connection, so con. And actually, you know what? We can do one thing here. So command X, since this is used for all classes, we can define it here as a global variable for the whole class. So we don't need to define it again in each class. That's better. So con.prepare statement, and then you pass the SQL here. Okay, so that's the prepared statement. The next thing is we need to pass the parameters. We need to configure the parameters. What is the first question mark, second, the third, and so on. So exactly like we did with the previous one, p prepared statement dot set, no, without n, dot set. Again, we have 3 strings. So for the first one, we have the ID. I'll copy that. Second and third. So 1 and 2. and here name, and here building. So those are the three values that we need to pass. Finally, we need to execute. So int, usually we call it row count. So this will be, oops, I row count. This is the row count equal preferred statement dot execute. Now we have another function which is called execute update. So this will execute the query and will return an integer. Ideally, we will return that integer. So again, let me make it. Let's define here with a value 0, and so if we manage to execute, oops, then this will return the iRow count. So if this is successful, then it will return 1 ideally, because we'll insert one statement, one record, sorry, and if it fails, then it will return a 0. And that's it for adding a department. The rest will be update and delete, so these will be exactly the same. They will follow the same concept. I will give you some time, work on it, and I will be pasting the solution for those here. Alright, so those are the delete and update department functions. As you can see, they are like add, they follow the same logic, use the same functions, basically execute update. The only difference is the query itself. So here we are inserting, here we are deleting, and here we are updating. Okay, so that's all for this video. In the next video, we'll be defining the DAO class for doctor. See you soon.